We're spinning some good old sailor exotic yarns. I wrote it. I can say it however I want. How about we start over?
Back here in the bar.
You nailed that one.
Yeah, I'm going to cross the finish line with this first take regardless.
All right. Well,
regardless of what you're up to.
Why don't you start this time, and we'll be better.
All right. Hey, everyone. It's Elliot.
And Todd. Welcome to Two Designers Walk Into a Bar, an ongoing conversation about pop culture and iconic design.
Today, we're dressing up the bar with coconut mugs, gardenia flowers, surfboards, and some poo-poo platters.
Because we're diving into a short series on Tiki Culture.
We'll talk about the origins and influences.
And it's not as simple as you think.
And learn why this very Americanized look took off throughout the country and set sail across the globe.
So grab your Tiki mugs, some fresh-cut pineapple, and a chilled pitcher of Classic Mai Tais.
We're spinning some good old exotic sailor yarns.
Back here in the bar. Here we are, back in our very exotic-looking bar today. Mm-hmm. And it appears, we've added a bunch of flowers and it's been dressed up. And speaking of dressing up the bar, I see you wore your Aloha shirt.
I did, yes. So flowered shirts are not only festive, of course, but, I figured out they hide stains really well. And I got to be honest with you, Todd, with all these fragrances and all this beauty, not to mention a cocktail or two, I'm already feeling the motion of the ocean, if you know what I mean.
Ooh, boy, how many drinks have you had? I'd better not waste any more time, huh?
Nope.
You didn't answer, though. How many drinks have you had? Like too many to count?
How many fingers are you holding up?
I'm not holding up any fingers.
Well, that's
all right, so we'll move on. All right, so we're talking about Tiki Culture, and we've got a little series here, and a good place to start is at the beginning, I would say, right?
That's always the best place, I think.
So you ask yourself, what is it? What is Tiki Culture? I'm glad you asked, Elliot.
Yeah, I think this is actually a perfect place to start because I think a lot of people, when we say Tiki, there's some sort of something visual that's popping into their head or maybe something sonic like musical or whatever, some sort of sound effects that are popping into their head. I got to be honest with you. I remember that Brady Bunch episode when they visited Hawaii and there was the tiki falling off the wall and all that stuff.
Yes,
and then they had the little like flute sound or xylophone sound or whatever that was.
Yeah.
Right. That was kind of, I think, Tiki jumping the shark. But let's roll back and so Todd, this is your wheelhouse. You suggested this. Yes, you absolutely love Tiki. You love Canadians, Bigfoot, and Tiki. I'm not sure if we can put all those together, but let's give it a try with Tiki at least.
That's true. Well, you forgot Batman, but
oh yeah.
But
was there ever a Batman Tiki episode?
I don't know if there was. It should have been recorded in Canada, though. I think.
Okay.
For some reason.
Tiki HQ, Canada. Okay, got it.
All right, but first, so the one thing I think just to level set is this Tiki culture that we're all familiar with it's an Americanized, probably overly romanticized interpretation of South Pacific culture. Like when I say South Pacific, I'm talking about Polynesian, Micronesia, Melanesia, all mashed up with some Hawaii and Caribbean island culture. So,
I once said Melanesia, but I saw my doctor.
Did you get it? You got it taken care of?
I did. They make amazing ointments now.
Oh, good. I'm glad you got rid of that. Well, hey, real quick.
Yeah.
Just because I was kind of curious, so I had to do a little bit of research. Like, where does the word tiki actually come from? Do you know this?
No. Mm-mm.
It's from New Zealand Maori mythology, which is like the sort of indigenous culture of New Zealand. Tiki is actually the name of the first man. So it's like it's like the New Zealand Maori version of Adam.
Huh. Interesting. Okay. Fascinating. All right.
So it has a meaning, but it doesn't really, it didn't really translate. I think it was just an easy word for Americans.
Yeah, to pronounce and
during that
remember,
time.
and it was just useful shorthand, probably.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
let's back up. Let me tell you what, aside from
All
the
right.
Brady Bunch, let me tell you what I do know about Tiki. So I know that it was really when GIs were returning from World War II. And obviously some of them had been in the South Pacific. They'd been in Hawaii. Yep. And they come back. They'd been exposed to this other culture. And then they drop back into post-World War II America, right? Which was obviously very different. And so I think as a result of that, you got to keep in mind that when these veterans were over there, they were really kids, right? They were in their late teens, early 20s. So prime party age, like the age of a typical college kid now, right? So they get exposed to things like exotic fruity cocktails, palm-thatched huts, Hawaiian leis, flowered shirts like we talked about.
Yeah.
Obviously, Todd, hula girls and the fantasies associated with them.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I'm sure you don't. Surfing, peacock chairs. Think about like Fantasy Island. That's so nice. Didn't they? I think Magnum PI may have had a peacock chair or two on there as well.
They should have.
Nautical items and tikis, like you said. So these carved wooden idols. So it's really easy to see the influence of tiki culture, both on America, but also on mid-century design. I mean, this is a design podcast after all.
Yeah. And, think about it. Like you said, many GIs were exposed to that. Newsreels were showing South Pacific culture. And when they came back post-war, there was a real sort of upbeat time in the U.S. So there was more move to the suburbs, more grab your own little piece of paradise. So it did. It had an effect on mid-century culture, just like the space race, a little bit later did. It really kind of, when you start mixing those two together, you see some of the funkiness that showed up in mid-century design, like Googie architecture, for instance.
Yes, Southern California architecture. I mean, think about, there were, and still are, some have survived, tiki hotels.
Yes,
apartment buildings. Think about bowling alleys, right? These kind of spaces where people would get together. I'm sure the open-air shopping malls of the 50s and 60s, I can imagine there were tiki-themed shopping centers and obviously giant restaurants and bars, and we'll talk about those in a little bit, right?
Right. That's probably what everybody knows when they think tiki. It has something to do with lounging. And,
that was kind of
drinks.
the lounge was sort of the front door for tiki, I guess. Okay, so I want to roll back though to something you said. It was Americanized. So obviously when we think about tiki culture, we think about these faraway islands. You think about Tahiti, you think about Hawaii, you think about New Zealand. Now, obviously, Hawaii became a state. It wasn't a state right after World War II.
Right.
But how did all of this start in the U.S.?
Okay, that's a really good question. Well, you already mentioned it was this sort of influx of South Pacific inspiration due to the ending of World War II, and obviously the newsreels and publicity around things happening in Hawaii and that area. And you're right, Hawaii was a territory at the time, but it actually started, believe it or not, because of the 21st Amendment and a guy named Ernest Raymond Beaumont Gant. And believe it or not, real quick.
That name does not roll off the tongue, and I'm not sure it can be found in history books.
Surely you've heard of Ernest Raymond Beaumont Gant, because although his origin, Elliot, his origin is a little disputed, but he is from either one of two exotic places, New Orleans or Limestone County, Texas. So either way.
Todd, if there's a scandal or a dispute from anything that we talk about, you'll dig it up. Okay.
I'm going to find it. Okay.
So for those of you who might not be history buffs, I will tell you what I remember. The 21st Amendment is the one that ended prohibition. So that was in December of 1933, I think, if my memory serves me correctly. So obviously before World War II. You know, if that hadn't happened, Todd, I think our podcast would probably be called something like Two Designers Walk into a Starbucks, or maybe Two Designers Hang Out in a Speakeasy or something like that, right?
Yeah, think of all the great jokes of history that would have been lost when you couldn't have two guys walking into a bar. It just wouldn't have the same ring.
The word I would use is panache.
That's a great word. We should try to find another place.
Yeah,
let's
just randomly drop it later in this episode for no reason.
yeah. All right. So you were kind of laughing about the name, but Mr. Beaumont Gant, wherever he was born with a traveling spirit, and he actually left home around 20 and worked on ships traveling both the Caribbean and the South Pacific. And in addition to his souvenirs, young Ernest brought back a thirst for adventure.
Clever. I see what you did.
Yeah. I could have said he set a course for adventure, couldn't I?
Yeah, but then the Love Boat lawyers would be knocking on our door.
Oh yeah, didn't think about that. Well, anyway, young Ernie, he changed his name to one that you might now know. He changed his name to Donn Beach and introduced Tiki Culture in 1934 at the end of Prohibition. He was only 26 years old when he opened Donn the Beachcomber, the famous.
So he was a total trendsetter then, because this was obviously 10 years before the end of World War II. So he sort of understood this novelty and the coolness of all these things he was seeing when he had set sail for 6 years, I guess, from 20 to 26. Okay.
Yeah, well, I think a little shorter than that, because this was his legit bar in Hollywood where he started blending those Polynesian-inspired decor with these exotic rum cocktails.
You know, Todd, you say legit like there's a story there, but all of this talk of cocktails and warm climates is making me a little bit thirsty. Can we take a break and summon the bartending gods for another pitcher of cocktails?
Something makes me think these soothing ocean currents are about to turn into a tidal wave of expenses.
It's nothing my order of a couple of shrunken heads can't fix.
Yeah, 2 shrunken heads and 1 shrunken wallet.
Glad to see you're seeing things my way.
Aloha. We'll be right back. Hi. We want to take a moment to mention that if you're enjoying this episode, we have an archive of topics ranging from the Olympics to movie posters.
Think Ghostbusters.
Iconic images.
Think Bigfoot.
Punk music.
The Ramones.
Saturday morning cartoons.
The Pink Panther.
And failed products like OK Soda. Visit our website at twodesignerswalkintoabar.com for full episode notes and visuals, the latest blog content, and to sign up for our newsletter.
Follow us on social media. We can be found on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Find the links on our website or search using the phrase Two Designers Walk Into a Bar.
Most importantly, leave a review on Apple Podcasts. It helps more people like you find podcasts like this.
And tell a friend about us. Send them a link to our podcast from your listening platform of choice.
And if you're inclined, buy our merchandise. Stickers, coasters, magnets, t-shirts. We're designers. We make good stuff, and it helps support the show.
Get in touch. Use the contact form on our website or send an email to hello@twodesignerswalkintoabar.com.
We read every message we get. Honest.
And we're available for speaking gigs. Email us to learn more.
Okay, now, back to the bar.
So, Todd, here we are back in the bar.
All right, did you have your sip?
I did. It was so Todd, there's nothing that tastes... The only thing that tastes better than an amazing cocktail is when it's an amazing free cocktail.
Okay, well, good.
I know
glad
you'll never know what that tastes like,
that.
so you'll just have to take my word for it.
Yeah. You got that right.
So, Donn Beach, you were mentioning Donn Beach, and you were mentioning that not a first-time bar operator, but a first-time legitimate bar operator. So you've definitely piqued my curiosity here.
All right. Not confirmed, but allegations say that Mr. Beaumont Gant changed his name to Donn Beach to separate himself from an illegal speakeasy that he ran in Hollywood called Ernie's Place.
Oh, okay.
You can believe that or not, but, you know, it's kind of a short jump, so...
Let me ask this.
All right.
I'm just thinking about this. Do you feel there's any way that to enhance his own mystique, he could have made that story up himself?
I think there's every way that could have happened, too.
See.
But, yeah, so...
All right, Don, we're on to you.
Well, I think a lot of people were on to Donn, but okay. So Donn the Beachcomber, the first, the famous, the trend-setting tiki bar of Hollywood. Let me tell you real quick. It was located on a side street off of Hollywood Boulevard and Highland. And if you are out there and you want to go see where it is, it's a giant apartment building now. All you have to do is turn at the Medieval Torture Museum, and then you'll see it right there. Just imagine what that's like.
The Medieval Torture Museum, they're, I think, the single biggest buyers of our podcast episodes. I think they just play those for all the patrons.
Just on loop, constant loop, right? All right, Donn the Beachcomber. Very well-known, super famous tiki bar. Everyone, there's no disputing this was the first. And one of his biggest contributions, we'll now refer to Ernie as Donn, okay? Because that's what he would want us to do.
It's going to make things easier.
One of his biggest contributions to tiki culture was his immersive environment. Remember, until then, there were only speakeasies or nothing because of Prohibition.
Yeah, sure.
Do you think speakeasies were known for their immersive environments?
I think they were known for poisoning their patrons with bathtub gin.
See, nothing about the environment in that, is it?
No, I would say people were, as time went on, more and more unaware of their environment.
The interior of the bar was transformed into this tropical oasis complete with bamboo furniture and tiki torches and peacock chairs. You mentioned these things earlier. Thatched roofs and Polynesian-inspired artwork. The vibe transported people to an exotic, faraway paradise, and it sparked imaginations, as you would imagine.
Okay, so this is the prototype. This is the first McDonald's or whatever, right?
Yes,
this is it.
yes.
This is ground zero. All right.
Yeah. So immersive environment, one big contribution. The second big contribution to tiki culture was his mixology.
Ah, yeah. For that, we remain eternally grateful.
Yes. Thank you, Donn. Think of drinks that we wouldn't have now without him. The Zombie, the Cobra's Fang, Planter's Punch, 3 Dots and a Dash. The list goes on. His menu, which we'll post, had over 60 drinks, although his New York Times obit alleged he had invented 84 bar drinks. So I think it kind of came and went over time.
So he was no slouch, is what you're saying.
No, he was no slouch in making up his history or drinks.
He's 2 for 2. I love it.
I know. So as Donn the Beachcomber's popularity grew, it faced competition from another tiki luminary. His name is Victor Bergeron, and you might know him, Elliot, as Trader Vic.
Yes, I do know of Trader Vic's, yes.
Trader Vic opened his first tiki bar in an exotic location called, I think it's called Oakland, California.
Oh, I've heard of that.
You've heard of that?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was a few years later, but that was 1937.
That's a very liberal use of the word exotic.
Well, like Donn the Beachcombers, Trader Vic's, he offered exotic cocktails and Polynesian-inspired decor. Now, you know how I love controversy as much as I love a Canadian.
Yeah.
One of the most famous rivalries in the history of mixology was the dispute over who invented the Mai Tai cocktail. Do you know that?
I did not know that.
Okay,
But I think to celebrate that, we should order a couple of Mai Tais.
Well, you're probably not wrong on that. Vic says he invented it in 1944. Donn claims it was based on his QB cooler, QB standing for Quiet Birdman.
Okay.
So,
well,
it was not Mai Tai. He didn't make the Mai Tai, but they said it's the same recipe.
right.
They
It's just
named it something
renamed.
different.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
regardless, it is my favorite tiki cocktail, Todd. Hint, hint.
Yes. Oh, thank you. It is sort of the quintessential tiki cocktail, which all others will be judged by, I think. Anyway, they were friends, and their friendly rivalry and aggressive expansion for both Donn the Beachcombers and Trader Vic's, it helped fuel this explosion of tiki cocktails and culture into the 40s and 50s and early 60s.
Yeah. Okay. So let's maybe open the door for a minute on this explosion of tiki culture, really when it became a little bit more mainstream, right? When it kind of went into flyover America or went to the East Coast or whatever. So, as you mentioned, there was all this news about the Pacific coming from these newsreels from the war, from returning veterans, and they were coming back talking about exotic places, right? There were headlines in newspapers that were talking about battles being fought in all these exotic places, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so these GIs come back, they get settled, they get jobs after their military careers are over, or they're going to school or whatever. So the 50s happen, the Cold War starts to happen. And, you know, Americans, I think, were turning to tiki culture because this was a really rigid time culturally, right? So it was
you're right.
kitschy, and it was sort of this weekend escapism, right? So you could have your backyard, maybe instead of a cookout, now we're going to have a backyard luau, right?
Right.
I think about things like everybody building their tiki bars, right? Their DIY tiki bars. Mm-hmm. And then as we talked about earlier, you travel. This was the age of the highway opening up, as we've talked about with some other episodes, with roadside attractions and everything. And you go to another part of the country and you maybe want something that's a little bit exotic. So, hey, look, a Polynesian style motel, right?
Right.
And then things like lounge music, surf rock.
Love it.
Yeah, I mean, you and I are both suckers for this period in terms of music. And then, as you mentioned, tiki aesthetics. Yeah, I guess as we're looking back on it today, it could be argued that it was maybe to some degree cultural appropriation. Although the GIs themselves, I would argue, and even our friend Donn the Beachcomber, they were exposed to this firsthand and they fell in love with it.
Yeah.
So they wanted to bring it back with them, this idea of exotic fantasy. And as we mentioned, this was during a time of political anxiety, right? The Red Scare, all these clampdowns. And then workplace and domestic conformity, right? The nuclear families, suburbia. So there was a certain kind of winking degree of hedonism here, I think, right?
Yeah, I think you're right. Remember, too, like, it was not just the return of the GIs, but that was the spark. Really, the tinderbox was, here you are in the late 40s, early 50s, and up until then, we've had a Great Depression, we've had a World War, and now things are like,
Prohibition,
wow.
as you mentioned.
And things are like, wow, this is great.
There was not a lot
now.
to get excited about.
Right. But now we had money and we had expansion, and while people may not be able to travel to Hawaii, they could pretend they could travel.
And then, so you talked about this idea of Donn the Beachcomber creating this immersive environment. And I don't think it was a coincidence that these places opened in California at first, right? I think one reason is obviously these guys were there just because, obviously, if you're into beach culture and things like that, California's the place to be. But also, of course, California really creates our creative mindset, right? That's where movie studios are. That's where amusement parks started, right? So if I remember correctly, didn't some Hollywood art directors and production designers get hired to really kind of take this look and blow it out at these restaurants and bars? Like they did. I mean, they were really the engineers of fantasy, right?
Yeah. They were creating sets for patrons to come in and interact with. It was really that immersive environment that, we see everywhere now.
And I gotta be honest, the last thing I think that you and I both love about Tiki is it was knowingly, to some degree, tongue-in-cheek, right? It was never meant to be authentic. Yeah. It was never meant to be serious. It was kitschy and a little bit over the top on purpose. So there was this underlying sense of humor about all of it that made that hedonism a little bit naughty and a little bit fun with things like hula girls and so forth, right?
I would agree. It was kind of safe fun, if you will. And it was because of that, and honestly, it was packaged for us here in the mainland because not everyone had visited the South Pacific. So it was easy to understand, it was easy to replicate, and it created a pop culture crossover. At least, for a minute, Tiki was everywhere when you think about it. And we were talking mainly about the origins in a tiki bar context here, but Americans were in love with this new exotica.
Oh, yeah. I mean, like we were talking about earlier, music. So lounge music had exotic instruments, wooden drums, steel guitars, ukuleles.
Yeah. Think you remember Les Baxter's Ritual of the Savage from 1952 or something like that?
Yeah.
It's the cornerstone of exotica.
100%.
And I mean, we love this music, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Martin Denny, he covered some of those Les Baxter songs as late as 1957, but he replaced the strings with vibraphones and bird calls and really established this sort of faux exotic music aesthetic, if you will.
Yeah, I think I heard, if I remember correctly, something about this. I think I remember that he was just recording the music, and then there were birds outside the window that were going crazy, and it was picked up on his mics, and he was like, this is actually kind of great.
Yeah.
So he just kept it in there. So happy accident. That. Yeah, me too. So this era of exotica, ultra lounge music, and Todd, as we've talked about, Gen X. We love Gen X. We are Gen X.
We love Gen X.
Gen X rediscovered that phenomenon, I think, between grunge and the ska resurgence. So like you said, lounge music, ultra lounge, exotic music sort of had its moment back in the 90s.
Yes, I remember, love it, still have the songs from that era. And, we could probably go on and talk about other sort of starts of tiki culture and entertainment. Just to mention a couple that I'm sure everyone is very familiar with. The musical South Pacific, you've heard of that, Elliot, right?
I have, yep.
And so it hit Broadway in 1949, but it really sort of busted open that musical and that culture in film in 1958. And, Gidget, you remember Gidget, right?
Yep.
All the surf movies, Gidget Goes Hawaiian, fashions with the flower pattern dresses, aloha shirts for men. That's, when you took off your tie from going to work 9 to 5. If you wanted to show you were ready to party, what'd you put on? You put on a flowered aloha shirt, right?
Absolutely. A good sartorial signal that you were ready to go.
Right. And, the Disney parks, they got in on this sort of adventure thing, the Tiki Room, Enchanted Tiki Room.
As they do, they're not ones to pass up a good opportunity for kitsch and going over the top.
Yeah, and then, of course, they opened a whole Polynesian resort in Florida in 1971. But we're going to talk more about how professional designers sort of took this culture and started really running with it in like graphic design and architectural design and things like that, product design. We're going to talk about that in our next episode. And as you can tell, Tiki is one of my favorite topics.
Oh, yeah, mine too. So fun decor, delicious drinks, and, a leisurely attitude.
But when it comes to paying me back for some of these drinks, Tiki or otherwise, you certainly have a leisurely attitude.
Oh, I think my ship is about to set sail. So just like Donn the Beachcomber, it's time for me to head toward the setting sun.
We will see everyone next time. Thank you.
Thanks.